Today we're going to be talking about secondaries, or pistols, or sidearms, whatever you want to call them. Sidearms are a really fun thing to have. You can run around with them. They're quick, small, light, usually pretty cheap, and they can be beneficial to a certain loadout depending on your playstyle. So we're going to be comparing a couple of different sidearm options that are on the market today. This will not include every option possible because there's so many, but hopefully we'll give you an idea of what is important in a sidearm. We haven't done a comparison video in quite a while, so hopefully this will be useful to you guys. Obviously, we have the new contender in the field, the Diana. So this obviously, of course, is the reason why we're making this video, is comparing all the options and why the Diana really is, at least in my opinion, the best sidearm. So a couple of things to consider in a secondary is compactness. Generally speaking, you want a secondary that you can carry on you, so that way it does not interfere while you use your primary or a larger blaster. My go-to primary would be the Sweetheart Storm, another new release, but the Harrier and the Caliburn are also some great options. But the secondary needs to not interfere with you using your primary. So me personally, I would use a secondary really only if my blaster jammed very badly and I wasn't able to clear it on the field and I still wanted to get shots downrange. Secondaries are also just a lot of fun to run as a primary or on their own to run and gun. They're really lightweight. And that means if you're very active and you like to run around and you like to get closer to your opponent, then that's a whole different play style. So personally, my play style is if my primary breaks in such a way that I need a secondary, then my primary is not good enough or I'm doing something wrong. So I don't usually run one. But there are times where if I'm running a new primary and I'm not sure how it'll function or if it'll break because I do a lot of stress testing, then having a secondary means I can keep playing and keep having fun if my primary breaks. If you do want to run a primary, then you're looking for either two things, for fun or for practicality. So we'll talk about those things. So for fun, a lot of really fun secondaries will be something that can supplement your primary. So if your primary is a high power, shooting long distance, maybe has a low rate of fire, you'd want a secondary that's practical and then can supplement that with a high rate of fire. So we have things like semi-auto, like the Nightingale, Viper. A lot of secondaries are semi-auto for that reason. The Jury, they're fire when you pull the trigger. Then a lot of other options for secondaries, such as the Lepus and the Quick, and of course the Diana, have that full auto option where you can pull it out, lay suppressive fire down when you're in a pinch, and then switch back to your primary. Or if there is an opportune moment where you would want to utilize that full auto burst, you have that option. That higher rate of fire can really come in handy in a lot of different situations, competitive. And it's also just fun to spray darts downrange as fast as you can. The other considerations, though, for a practical primary would be its size. We've mentioned that a couple times, is you'd want something that isn't too bulky to carry. So we have options like, the Unicorn that you can run as a pseudo primary, or the Edge, again, pseudo primary, where they're too big to really be a secondary, but they're a little on the smaller, underpowered side to be a full primary. So those can be a problem when you're thinking about what secondary do I want. You want it to be not too bulky and heavy, and so sometimes you run into problems with, in my opinion, the Quick, which is nice because you can use different motors for higher or lower power, but its sheer size makes it so you can't fit it into a lot of holsters. You could do magnets on the side that increase your cost, and those can fall off if you bump them wrong. But overall, it's pretty chunky, and so I like a nice slim secondary. So for example, the Jury fits really nice. Of course, the all popular Zinc is very slim. It's a very narrow profile. You can sit it in a holster. It's almost like you don't even know what's there, rather than something that is going to take up a lot of room and is going to be banging into your side when you're running. So considerations is size, and of course the rate of fire, the suppressive fire, semi-auto or full auto. But then you have the fun factor. So you have a lot of cool, fun secondaries to run, like the Wild West revolvers, like the Viper, which is break action, which is honestly one of the most fun styles you can have. You get 8 shots, which is usually enough for a secondary. And then you've got the Magpie revolver, Jury revolver, Deuce Pro revolver. So you've got some cool blasters to supplement your more practical loadout. So you could be able to have something on you like a revolver that you can kind of has that tactile feel and you can finick with. If you have a Viper, you have 8 shots. Those revolvers typically have less shots than something mag-fed, but we'll talk about that. So in a secondary, again, if you have to use your secondary, it's either because your primary jammed and you need something to lay down fire enough to keep the enemy's heads down while your teammate rescues you, or you can unjam, get back in the fight, or you have an opportunity to just ammo dump on someone. So you need enough rounds to get down range to keep your opponent's head down. Because if you're running a secondary and I pull it out and I fire 6 shots real quick to keep your head down, and then I'm out of ammo and my opponent knows I'm out of ammo, well, now I have a secondary that's out of ammo and a primary that I'm not using, and so you're kind of stuck. So things like the Jury with their 6-shot cylinder are way fun. And other ones that have 5 to 8 shot cylinders, that 8 shots is enough to keep your opponent's head down, but it's also enough where you have to worry about how many times you've shot, and that can be kind of devastating when, the adrenaline's pumping and maybe you're not counting your shots properly. So something mag-fed typically has more capacity. So you have options like, the Fire Rat, the Diana's default magazine, and let's see, the HR3, semi-auto. Yeah, so, and then like I said, Zinc, you have options that have a magazine that can hold more than enough ammo. So most defaults hold about 10 rounds. So like Diana magazine holds 10 round by default, Fire at 10 rounds. And that's almost twice as many as, your normal 6-round revolver. So that's pretty good. But having the versatility to be able to a full auto spread of 10 rounds is pretty effective for maybe one target. Maybe you can do burst. But then you have the option of like the Nightingale, where you got 15 rounds. So that opens you up already, and you can obviously cut a Nightingale mag and glue the base back on, so you'd have a shorter mag. But that 15 rounds is very equivalent to a lot of primaries ammo capacities, and so you can reliably not have to worry about reloading your secondary as soon as you've used it. And also the magazine cross compatibility is a factor. So 15 rounds for a Nightingale, you can get extensions for the Diana to hold more, and then you have the Pigeon, which can hold a 15-round Talon magazine as well. So anything that is compatible with the Talon magazine, or the Quick, which can use an 18-round magazine. Granted, it's extra long at that point, so you lose some maneuverability and mobility, but having enough rounds means that your full auto dump is going to be a full dump, very suppressive, or you could get even 3 or 4 dumps or bursts worth out of to keep your opponent's head down. So very practical from that aspect. So your ammo capacity, your compatibility of mags. So if you have something that uses proprietary magazines, you're not going to be able to swap it with your primary. Now again, if I'm not using a secondary very often, I don't really need to worry about sharing mags with my primary. I know that's a concern for some people who want one magazine for all their blasters, but if I'm using a secondary as a practical secondary that I'm only going to shoot maybe once or twice throughout the day, I really only need 1 or 2 mags on me, and those can be my secondary mags, not a problem. But it is nice if you are running a minimal loadout to be able to share your mags between your blasters. So if you have something that's Talon fed, you may want to get a secondary that is Talon magazine fed as well. So you have your ammo capacity, your ammo compatibility, and we have the versatility and the fun factor of laying down fire. Now it comes down to price as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Diana. So the Diana is a very small platform, so it checks that box. The Diana is semi-full or burst fire, so it checks that box of being able to do suppressive fire, or if you want to run it as a primary and conserve your ammo, you can do that as well. I found that with even just a 10-round mag on semi-auto, running it a little more sneaky, 10 rounds is more than enough to get, at least 5 tagged with. And so that semi-auto mode can come in handy. For more practical sakes, maybe the burst mode or full auto will come in handy, and the Diana can do it all. In addition, it's quiet. So a lot of secondaries out there, like the Jury and a lot of flywheelers, which a lot of secondaries are flywheelers, will just be louder than they ought to be. The Diana doesn't have that problem. Price point though, a lot of blasters out there like the Jury, around 50 to 60, Fire at around 90 to 100. With the battery though, for those electric ones, the Nightingale for example, to get a magazine Nightingale charger, you're looking at more like 120. And so it gets higher and higher from there. The Diana has a price tag of $250. Is it worth it? Well, if you look at all of these, you have the fun factor of shooting mega, of shooting a Lepus, which is 50 darts per second, which is really the best suppressive you'd ever need. Put all of these possible secondaries, and I have actually run, I have run every single one of these blasters as a full primary or a dedicated secondary at least once before. And I'd say the Diana, because it's full auto and fun, it takes the cake of all of these. So instead of buying a whole wall full of blasters, you could swap out 2 of these and get a Diana. So instead of getting a Viper or a Zinc, you could get a Diana, and I think that's worth it because a Diana has capability of a normal 10-round magazine or a full-length magazine or a modified 15-round Nightingale magazine. It has semi, full, and burst modes, and it's very compact. It is only slightly bigger than a Zinc. So it would fit in a lot of the same holsters. It is smaller, of course, than most of the blasters up here. Even the Jury, which is very popular, at its widest point is about the same size, maybe an 1/8 an inch smaller. So size-wise, the Diana, again, has it where it counts. The other thing to think about is the power consideration. Most secondaries you don't need to have hit as hard as a primary, obviously. So most secondaries will hit around 100, 150 feet per second. So the Nightingale hits like 120, 130. The Jury hits 150. Fire Rat can be modded up to 150, but usually around 120. A lot of the flywheelers, the FTW stuff and the smaller flywheeler stuff hits around, again, 110, 120, like the Lepus, the Nightingale, Viper, Pigeon, Magpie all hit around 120. Then you've got the Quick, where you can use different cages. It kind of makes it larger though, but that can hit anywhere from that 100 range up to that 200 FPS range if you use higher performance motors and wheels. But the Quick is kind of large for a run and gun secondary. So everything here mostly hits around that range, and that includes the Diana. The Diana hits about 140, 150 feet per second, and so your secondary doesn't need to be all that powerful. I ran a Rainbow pistol, which hit closer to 100 back in the day, so I was able to snipe with my pistol. That's a playstyle thing, but for practical and fun, and I guess if you want to snipe and if you want to accurately hit your target, that can be fun, but a lot of people like to just ammo dump, so the all-popular Lepus and Quick, fun because of the ammo dump. The Nightingale also has a full auto feature, which is practical and ammo dump. And so if you want something that you can ammo dump or be conservative, the Diana can do both. Very versatile, really easy to program. And I think it is definitely the go-to. The only thing I would complain about the Diana, obviously, is the price. The performance is there. There's not really anything that's gonna break on it. I guess secondaries in general, my complaint is holsters and carrying them. You can get good holsters, but that's just more gear. And I personally am, if I'm running my primary with a couple mags, I'm set. I feel like the shot consistency is better with the brushless motors than a lot of the 130 normal motors like the Nightingale and the Pigeon. So we do have pre-orders for the Diana open now. It is a private access until the public access opens. I'm not sure how long these will last. We've already sold quite a few of these. We'll hopefully be able to stock these in the future and continue to get different accessories. We also have nice, small, compact 4S batteries that'll work. The Diana also does take a 3S battery just fine. We even chronoed it and tested it today. The spin up seemed a little bit faster, actually, because we're not hitting that high of FPS, and that is on track with what HairTech R&D told me. But with the 3S, you lose about 10 FPS, so it was hitting about 130s, which is great for HVZ, unless you have a 120 HVZ limit, then that's too bad. But for most HVZs that have a 130 limit, the Diana on a 3S is perfect. It fits a same battery as the Lepus, totally fine, with extra room for that adapter to go to XT30 to JST for your Lepus. So if you want to switch from a Lepus, and you like the Lepus, but again, the Lepus is not really holsterable, it's kind of hard to carry. So Lepus is fun for laying down that foam in suppressive fire, but the Diana has that front nose where you can holster it and it's more practical. So if you want to keep the same battery and use it in your Diana, you can totally do that. It works just fine. But with a 4S battery, which we'll be stocking, you'll be able to get closer to 140 to 150 FPS. So that little 10, 15 FPS boost. Let us know though, what is your favorite secondary? What is your favorite pistol and why? What are you looking for in a pistol? It may not be the Diana for you, and that's fine. It may be something else. Maybe you like to shoot something more fun, or maybe you'd rather dual wield 2 things that are cheaper. Unless you want to dual wield 2 full autos, then that is way fun too, less practical. And as always guys, keep nerfing.